Hey guys, for today's video, I decided that I would talk for a few minutes about sports in the Philippines. And this is, of course, I'm doing this video right after there was some big stuff happening in the NBA last night with the new champion and all that kind of stuff. So I thought this would be a good opportunity to share with you what type of sports that Filipinos like based on my observations and how it's different in the Philippines versus here in America, at least. But anyway, the main thing to keep in mind when it comes to the Philippines, there are two sports based on my observation that are really dominant. And the first one is basketball, the second one is boxing. So I'll talk to you a little bit about basketball in the Philippines. It is simply, it's for me, hands down, it's the most popular sport in terms of the people that follow it, the people that watch it, and also the people that play it. So when it comes to the Philippines, you're going to see that they watch American sports very closely in terms of basketball. They watch the college championships. They watch the NBA, the professional championships. They know who all the big stars are and all that good stuff. But then, of course, they also have their own leagues. So in college basketball is very popular in the Philippines. Each college is going to have its own team, and they have a championship, and people watch that all over the country. And they also do have a professional league of their own in the Philippines. So they follow our version of, or our teams here in the United States, and they also have their own teams. And the funny thing is, I'm not a huge basketball fan, so whenever I would talk to Filipinos, they would know a lot more about what was going on with college and professional basketball here in the U.S. They would know more about it than I do because I just don't follow the sport that much. But people follow it, they follow the teams, and they also play it a lot. You'll find that just about any place you go around the Philippines, they're going to have a basketball court. If you have a side street that's wide enough, they're going to have a basketball hoop set up there and play it. And they also have something they call Barangay Basketball. And if you have an opportunity to watch it, I would encourage you to do that, even if you don't understand what they're saying. It's a lot of fun because what they do is they'll basically get a guy who is an announcer and more of an amateur kind of guy, but he'll have a speaker, he'll have a microphone, and he'll be calling the game and shouting when somebody scores a goal and all kind of stuff. So basketball's huge. I mentioned boxing. You can ask just about anybody in the Philippines who Manny Pacquiao is, and they'll know. And it was interesting for me because his rise to fame and power kind of happened while I was in the Philippines. I was there from 2002 to 2013, and right after I arrived, I noticed he was getting really popular, and he would have a match, everybody would be watching it. And when I talk in churches, I used to joke that whenever Manny Pacquiao is fighting, that even the police can take the day off because all the criminals are watching the fight. And it just, he basically has captured the imagination of the entire nation. So boxing is really popular. And boxing, in terms of boxing, the Philippines tends to have a really strong rivalry with Mexican fighters. So several of Pacquiao's opponents and some of the most hotly contested fights were with Mexican fighters. So anyway, boxing is very popular, and especially if you get one guy like Manny Pacquiao who becomes really powerful or influential in the sport and really successful, a lot of people are going to watch that. So basketball and boxing, those are the main two. In terms of women's sports, there's also women's basketball, and they have that at the collegiate level, so you'll see teams playing that. And volleyball is also really popular, especially back to the collegiate level. You'll watch schools, colleges compete against each other, and the players get followings on, they get followed on social media and that kind of thing. Especially, honestly, especially the pretty ones get really get really popular. So anyway, those are some of the lady sports: basketball, volleyball. Badminton is fairly popular in the Philippines. My wife is actually a really good player as far as badminton goes. And those are just a few. Now, I'll share with you some sports that are not quite as popular as basketball and boxing, but they're fairly popular. Like, for example, billiards. Filipinos, there are some who are very good at playing pool, nine ball, that kind of thing. There's a guy, I believe his name is Efren Reyes, who's known all over the Philippines because he's become quite wealthy from winning tournaments, pool tournaments all over the world. And if ever you watch international pool tournaments, like a nine ball tournament on ESPN or something, very common to see a Filipino player that gets into those final rounds of that or even wins. Another sport that's fairly popular is table tennis or ping pong. And I don't know that that one is followed nationally that much, but it's just very popular. People really enjoy playing it. So that one's kind of popular at the grassroots, I guess you could say. A couple of more sports that are, I would say, gaining some traction in the Philippines are soccer. That's what the rest of the world calls football, but in America we call it soccer. And that's becoming fairly popular in the Philippines. I've noticed that some of my Filipino friends follow it. The Philippines does have their own soccer team that competes internationally, and the Filipinos will really get behind them, especially the younger generation seems to enjoy that. One more sport that I've noticed is gaining a little bit of traction is mixed martial arts. You notice I'm wearing my tap out shirt, so I can't forget that. But one thing that's interesting is, at least when I was in the Philippines, the all of the UFC events were broadcast on cable. In other words, it was just part of the cable package. If you had this particular channel, and I don't remember which channel it was, maybe it was Spike, but anyway, all of the UFC events that you would have to watch pay-per-view here in the States, they were just on television, live. So maybe that's one reason it's becoming really popular there in the Philippines. You notice one sport that I did not, or a couple of sports that I have not mentioned, are baseball and football. Baseball, based on my experience, was not that popular there. I didn't really see people talking about it, playing it, anything like that. And one big adjustment for me was being in a country where American football is not popular at all. People just don't really pay that much attention to it for the most part in the Philippines. And part of this, if you really think about it, if you compare American football to a lot of the other sports I've talked about, boxing, basketball, it's kind of complicated. In other words, if you really think about American football, it's a lot of stop and start action. It's very technical. The ref's always stopping it. You play a few seconds, then you stop for a while, then you play another few seconds. And part of it is a lot of Filipinos just don't know what the rules to football are. So when we moved back here to the United States, that's one thing I did is I taught my wife the rules of the game, and now she understands the game very well, and she does enjoy it now because she understands what the heck they're doing. But your typical Filipino who's never watched the game that much just doesn't know the rules of it. But I would say, in terms of sports, that was one of the big changes for me is I didn't follow football that much, especially college football, when I moved to the Philippines. Professional football is a little bit easier to find on either in cable packages or if you go to a sports bar somewhere. College football can be kind of hard to find or watch depending on where you live and who your cable provider is. And part of that is even the time difference, because if a game's coming on in 1 in the afternoon, you're probably not going to want to get up at 3 a.m. to watch a football game unless you're just really die hard. So anyway, that was an adjustment for me because I live here in Alabama where college football, it's practically religion to some people. And then once I moved to the Philippines, I kind of became emotionally detached from it. Alabama won several national championships while I was there, and I didn't pay that much attention to it because I guess it was an out of sight, out of mind kind of thing. And then when we were preparing to move back here to the United States, I kind of warned my wife about how fanatical some people are about that kind of thing here. And it was an eye opening for her because people have here in Alabama, they have banners on their cars. They decorate people's graves with Alabama and Auburn stuff. I mean, that's how seriously some people take it. So that was like I said, that was an adjustment for us, and even for me to come back and watch the games and really be so into it again all of a sudden, as if I had never left. That was a change. So anyway, basketball and boxing, I would say, are the two big sports. If you're fans of either of those, you'll have some connections with Filipinos based on that. I think it's going to be an adjustment if you really like baseball or football. You can probably manage to watch either of those if you really are resourceful or figure out a way to watch it online or buy a service like Sling TV that has ESPN on it, something like that. But those sports are not quite as popular in the Philippines. I hope this video has helped you. I hope it's given you some idea of what you can expect if you visit or move to the Philippines. And I will talk to you again soon.